You're at the speed shop.
We used to hang out at the speed shop, and this W31 Olds wanted to race. I hadn't been beat at the time. We got on a freeway headed for the state line. God, I couldn't catch the damn thing. I'd go 150. The speedometer went to 150, and I buried it long ago. She was still wrapping up when I buried it. I couldn't even come close to him. We were coming back, kind of racing down Sprague, just light to light, just kind of playing. And the guy in the Roadrunner that owned the speed shop, the Olds was a white car, and it was beside me, and we raced, and then it made a light that I didn't make, so I stopped, and this Roadrunner come up beside me. And I gunned my motor, you know, shot out, the light turned green, and I looked over, and it was the county sheriff in a Dodge Coronet, big star on the side. He's pointing over. So I pulled over, and he stopped, and he didn't stop. He kept going, and he pulled over the Olds. And we both got a ticket. And the damn Roadrunner had seen the cop, and he skied out, the dirty bugger. He turned off on Sprague and went some other way, and left us holding the bag. But I never had a ticket before I got that car, and I haven't had one. I've had two since.
Wow. When you were in high school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to survive to make it through high school.
Yeah?
I never did have a...
Didn't have a goal?
Well, my goal was equipment.
Yeah?
Yeah. My dad taught me everything there was to know about equipment.
Really?
And I watched it.
Tell them about the equipment he built for you for your around the
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, he built wonderful toys. We didn't have much money, but he built heel booms, and my trucks had lights in them, tail lights and headlights, and of course it was Tonka toys. And I still have one old truck that of course doesn't have the lights in it anymore. It's rusted about through, but I often wish that I had kept, you know, as kids are, you tear up more crap than you can think.
Oh, yeah.
And so all them toys got tore up. But I'd sure like to have them, because the heel boom had little brass pulleys on the cables, and oh, it was really cool.
Wow.
And a working heel boom for logs, and I had a log truck and dozers and loaders, and
Wow.
about what my kids have got. Of course, they had all new Tonkas,
Yeah.
but then after they left home, I bought my own Tonkas.
Yeah.
Jim and I were at an auction, and they had, I don't know, 12 of them.
Nice.
12 brand new Tonka toys, loaders and trucks and...
First and second gens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Two drag lines. One was plastic and one was the old metal one. And we bid for so much a piece. I got the bid, $12.50 a piece, and bought them all. So I got downstairs for my grandkids, Erica. I have
Bunch of
Tonka
Tonkas.
toys for my kids.
All the metal ones.
Yeah.
Cement
Yeah.
mixers.
Cement mixers and dump trucks and cranes.
After you graduated, what job did you have?
I never did graduate.
Okay.
I made it to all but about 3 days. We moved from Medellin Falls. We moved to Spokane. I went to East Valley High School
Wow.
when I was in the 11th grade. And of course, I transferred my class clown clause with that. And So I had my own little group of clownies, you know. And I made it till about 3 days from graduation. And the shop teacher's going to give me a hack. I told him if he did, I'd knock him on his ass. He did, and I did, and upstart of it is I never got to graduate.
Wow.
So, but in my profession of running equipment, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you just about got to have a PhD to run equipment. It's all mostly computerized and such. But
So your first job out of high school was?
I was making $300 a week in high school running equipment with my dad. So I didn't perceive that I needed high school. I was making a good living for a kid. Of course, I was living home. It didn't cost me nothing for rent.
Yeah.
Well, my mother made me pay a little bit, but you know,
Yeah.
it didn't amount to nothing.
Yeah.
And
So how long did you stay at that job?
till it was working with my dad, and my dad was a wonderful man.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd get on each other's nerves, and of course, when you live at home, you never got away from him. You worked with him all day, and then at the supper table, if he was mad at you in the afternoon for some damn reason, he's still mad at you at supper, and he never knew how to let it out. He never, he was hard, but he was fair. And so I'd work about 6 months with him, get pissed off, and then I'd leave.
6 months? How many times did we move when we were married? First year?
Well, we moved 24 times the first
No, 13 times.
Oh, wait a second here. We're getting into timeline issues. When did you get married?
year.
He was 19.
April 15th, 1972.
Really? Where was this at?
Yakima, Washington.
Yakima, Washington. Huh?
Yep.
What brought this about?
I was 19 and
Chris.
His mother didn't like the 69 Dodge RT that much, but she wasn't sure if she wanted to trade it for the redhead.
Aha.
yeah, my mother. Well, Kathy's mom and dad said we couldn't get married.
Okay.
And so, being teenagers and know it all and do it all, conceives Junior Barnes there,
Christopher.
Christopher Wayne, and they couldn't sign fast enough. So we were married, and
We're going on 30 years now.
yeah, it'll be 30 years this April 15th.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
Of course, her aunt said I was white trash and it'd never last, and her 2 kids were angels, and they've both been married
3-4 times.
3-4 times now. Kathy and I are still limping along.
Yeah. So you stayed with your dad for 6 months. Then what did you do after that?
I'd go, let's see, we went to Yakima. I worked down there, didn't I?
You,
I went to Ponderay
when we
Mine.
first were married, you ran the service station. You were
Yeah, I
for Bob.
worked at Bob Rosen's 76 station for $1 an hour.
Oh boy. That's a pay cut.
Well, yeah, it was a hell of a cut. Even in 1972, it wasn't minimum wage. It was, I needed a job, and I told him I'd work for him for $1 an hour
Wow.
because I was married and had a kid on the way. But then I,
Left there and went to work in Spokane and stayed with your folks.
yeah, I got fired from Rosen's.
No, you left.
No, Gail fired me. I got rid of my Dodge and got a 1960 Chevy with the 300 horse 327, and I was laying rubber at the gas station, and the boss's wife happened to drive by, and of course all this smoke, and she got pissed off.
So she fired
Yeah, well, she didn't. Bob came to work. I gotta fire you.
you.
I said, what the hell are you talking about? You lay rubber all the time. He said, yeah, but my wife don't see me doing it.
Yeah.
So I left there, and we went from there to Medellin, didn't we?
No, we went to Spokane, you worked for Paul Gunn, I believe.
Yeah, I went back to work at that.
Yeah.
And
Then you found out about the mine.
no, I always knew the mine was there. I'd worked at the mine before I got married, when I had the Dodge the first time. I worked at the mine,
Yeah.
and I was just a kid. I wasn't 19 yet, I was 18. And I only worked there 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Describe the mine.
Huh?
Describe the mine. It isn't what we'd think about being a mine.
Well, it's an underground mine. A 16 by 16 foot tunnel, and have equipment, trucks and loaders, and they have IMCO loaders, which is a loader on tracks that the bucket's in the front, and you get a scoop like a front end loader, and then it went clear up over the back of you on a big rocker, and it dumped behind you into a truck. So you have to rock the load and then get it really wound up, and she'd fire off, and if the truck wasn't in the right place, you might throw some on the cab and on the, it wasn't really, most of the time it had a big tire on the back of it, and a big deal where you'd back right into the truck, and the truck would stop you. There was no brakes, and then you'd throw it over the top, and you're loading in the end of the truck most of the time. So it was, you didn't load from the side too awfully much. And then the driver kind of spotted when the loader come back, you had it in gear, because if you didn't move before he hit you and dumped, he'd dump her right in the cab.
Oh
Because
no.
the loader operator couldn't see behind him.
Yeah.
And I drove truck. First you beat on the Grizzly, and the Grizzly's where they dump the rock, and it's got grates. And they got a butterfly deal that you put on a harness, so you can go out on this grate with a 20-pound hammer and beat the rock that won't go through the grate. And it's a bullshit job. I was making $3.05 an hour when I went to work there, and started on the Grizzly. Only worked 3 or 4 nights on the Grizzly, and then I went to Diamond Drill Helper, and that's where they work in a 5 by 7 tunnel, 5 foot wide and 7 feet tall, and they make these tunnels, and then they diamond drill off of it which is a drill that drills a 1.5-inch hole or 2-inch hole, and then it's got a cartridge at the end where it makes a core. And then when you bring the core out, you put it in these boxes, and it tells the coordinates where it is, so they can see what's ahead in the tunnel.
Get the core.
And I did that for, I don't know, a couple of months,
Yeah.
and got buried in a 5 by 7.
You got buried.
Yeah, the back, which is the top of the tunnel, is called the back. It all fell down and filled the tunnel up, and we were doomed. Yeah, that's a core,
Wow.
and it goes in these boxes, and it tells what foot it is and what it is. If there's lead in it or zinc or what.
What?
And that's from Grandview Mine.
That's from Grandview Mine. It's not from Ponderay Mine. But now I was working with a guy, his name was Jess Hunt,
In,
old guy.
Camels.
He'd been drilling for
Lead.
30, 35 years there. I was working with him and he sent me out to get something and I couldn't get out and I come back.
What's that?
That's pure lead
Pure lead.
from Ponderay Mine.
Wow, it
Yeah.
sparkles. You can see it.
Yeah,
Wow.
lifted his head.
Oh, wow. It is.
Yeah, take a look.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
There you
from Ponderay County, he's already condemned.
go.
He was born in Ponderay County.
Yeah.
But
And then-
anyway, I went out and I couldn't get out and I come back and I was toast because I was
And he put that
a
in
little
the
bit
paper.
claustrophobic anyway. And I would just go nuts. Ah, yeah. Just settle down. They'll come and they'll know we're doomed here at the end of shift when they don't show up to be picked up. They'll
Yeah.
come and look. And
Sitting in the dark.
no, we had our headlights.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we had, and he explained it to me. He said it's not like we're going to run out of air because the drill we had air to the drill. It was an air drill. So we had tons of air.
Yeah.
And he said, sit down and we'll eat lunch because we didn't never stop for lunch. We ate our lunch and then we drilled a little bit and finally got to the end of shift. Pretty soon, of course, I was up at the top of the pile. I was working.
Trying to get out.
I wasn't too impressed with sitting around on my butt waiting for them. Pretty soon they broke through from their end. That was the end of that. I went driving truck after that. And the deepest hole we drilled was 514 feet. That's almost the record at Ponderay for that many of that small of drill.
Yeah.
And they're 5-foot rods. Every 5 foot you had to take them apart. And a drill helper, that was your job, is to take these and set them in a rack. Well, 500 feet, there's a lot of them damn things, and your hands hurt. Because after you put them in a rack and then you grab grease out of a 5-gallon can and grease them so that they have, they turn in the hole, you know.
Yeah.
Lubricant.
Lubricant. And so your hands are always sticky and slippy. And of course the driller, he just takes 2 pipe wrenches and breaks them apart. That's the end of his job. He turns them about a half a turn. Of course they have big threads where they screw
Yeah.
off easy. But then I come to work and Huffine, Dave Huffine Senior, as Dave Huffine, my friend Dave Huffine's dad, and Dave Huffine worked there too. And he said, "Can you drive truck?" "Oh hell yeah, I can drive truck. I can drive anything." Well, they had these little 7-ton ukes, and they have a 471 Jimmy in them, and a 5-speed with a 2-speed Brownie in. Well, I'd never been in one in my life. And you ride the skip down to the 1450 level, which is, you start at 2250 is the surface, and that's 2,250 feet above sea level. And you go on this incline down to the 1450 level, which is 1,450. That's where the trucks were parked, and they had a big hollowed out place where a shop with lights and all of that. That was the underground shop. And then you go from there, everybody getting the ukes. Of course, it was back in the 70s where there was no OSHA or MSHA. They were alive, but they didn't mean nothing. So you'd get in your uke and you'd lift the bed up, because the beds were pointed like this in the back, and then they were level in the bottom. You'd lift up till that deal was level and it was about this far off the ground, and miners would jump in. So that's how you'd haul them down to where they were going.
Oh,
That's how you moved everything in the mine, except Huffine Senior had a, at the first time I worked there, had a checker cab with a diesel in it, a car, and he'd haul you in that. And but I went down to get my first load and talked the loader hand. That's Daryl Stuber was running the loader, IMCO. He told me coming out of this drift where we were hauling, he says, you gotta hit her hard at the bottom and fifth and over, hard as you can, and then shift like a bastard going up this hill. Everything is uphill to the 900 level. We'd come from the 1450, and we went down to about the 800 level and got muck, and then haul it to the 900 crusher. And then it'd go by belt to the surface. And so I hit this boy, I'm grinding gears, and he said right at the very top of the hill, you gotta hit the starter. He says, you'll be in first and under, but if you don't hit the starter, you ain't gonna make it. Well, I didn't believe that, you know. So I'm going, and that 471 is wound right to the kahoonies, and I didn't hit the starter, and I got right to the top of that. I mean, I could spit where it was flat, and that son of a bitch quit. And down the hill I went backwards. Of course, you push in the clutch, try to hit reverse, that don't work. I mean, and I went flying backwards down this hill. It was about, seemed like half a mile. It was probably 250 yards.
wow.
And I'm trying to put her into the rib. The ribs are the side of the tunnel, because it's called a rib. To stop, there's no brakes. I mean, there's brakes, but with a loaded truck, there is no brakes. And I come down to the corner, and I hit solid. I didn't make the corner. I didn't try to make the corner. Of course, I was scared shitless. I hadn't been behind the wheel of this thing for an hour yet. You know?
Yeah.
And well, I come to a hell of a halt, and I thought, so it took me 5 or 10 minutes to wipe my little butt and kind of, you know, get courage enough to try again. Well, I wound her out and first and under, and by God, up the hill we went. And geez, it was going right along, a lot better than it was. And unbeknownst to me, down on the side of you, there's a handle with the power takeoff, or the power takeoff was over here. You put this lever in gear and it makes the pump to dump. Well, the dump lever is over on this side. Well, the power takeoff day shift must have left it in gear. That's the only thing I can figure. When I hit so hard, that dump lever popped up, and I dumped my load as I took off, and I didn't know it. Well, I went roaring up this hill, and right at the top there's a 10-inch air main line going across the back. Well, I tore that son of a bitch down with the box, and it fell down and about blew me out of the cab. Well, man, I was terrified, and there's the 440 power line, and the sparks flew, you know, and I remember getting to the 900 crusher on foot, and I'd only hit about every, Jurgen Tiede said I was only hitting about every 50 feet, because I was just, I was scared, and I told him I quit, get me out of this son of a bitch. Dave Huffine Sr. came along, he started to laugh. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, come and look, and things aren't all bad. Well, it was the airline that I blew up, and so I had to stop and fix that, and then I went back to work. But I quit shortly thereafter. Well, it was, I think I worked there maybe 6 months the first time till I quit. And Medaling Falls wasn't up to my speed with my hot car, and I was more in tune with Spokane.
Yeah.
But then after we was married,
Summer in '72, I came to town.
was that when we came to Medellin?
No. Summer of '70, it was '71. I came to town in Spokane. I stayed with Karen.
Yeah, and that's when I first
That's when
met her.
Dave Hillock and you and Karen came and picked me up.
Yeah, Dave Hillock and I went and picked her up with her cousin Karen. The lights flickered. She poured a Pepsi down my pants.
Down his shirt.
No, I poured it down your shirt.
No,
You
I
poured
put
it
it down
down
the
my
back of your
pants.
shirt.
Oh,
And it
okay.
went all the way down.
I poured it down the front of her shirt. Much more effective.
Dating rituals of the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. But then her cousin Kenny and I bummed around together, and we ended up in Yakima. And that's when
Halloween.
Halloween 1971.
One.
That's when
Sweet.
Yeah.
we
Really?
got married.
Asked
Then
my wife to marry me on Halloween.
Oh wow. Well, that's cool.
and that we went to move to Medellin after Spokane.
Yeah.
I got tired of working with Dad again, and we went to Medellin, and I went to work at Ponderay again, and after having to wrestle, he had to wrestle. What the hell was his name? Billings, Warren Billings. He was a tyrant. He was the boss, big boss of mine, and you'd stand in this hallway, he'd walk by you, and he'd say, "No labor, no labor," because everybody that got hired was a laborer. We started out with no labor, and well, I needed a job because Chris was coming, and so I'd meet him at the office every day, and then I started waiting on his front porch in the morning, and he finally gave me a job. That was the second time I worked there. Your grandpa, Uncle Ben, he was Kathy's dad. He was night watchman. He run loader for, I don't know how long he worked there, probably 30 years. And you'd have to confirm that with Dave or Barbara. Do you know Kathy?
I'm really not sure. I think he would work there in 1955, and I think he retired in 75. Or, from night watchman.
Yeah.
He was there. Yeah.
Well, he had silicosis of the lungs, which is rock chips in the lungs, and the mine had its own doctors and said it wasn't job related, so they put him out as night watchman. There again in the 70s, you didn't have. He could have went to Spokane and sued, I imagine, but nobody ever had money enough to do that.
Yeah.
And,
They only paid on Monday.
yeah, they wouldn't pay you on Friday so that you could go to Colville and get groceries or something. They pay you on Monday so you'd spend it in Medellin Falls. You had to work on Monday.
$82 a week.
Yeah, we made $82 a week take home pay. But we lived in the apartment building, and that was after our $9 a week was our rent.
We
That
lived
was-
next door to your dad,
Yeah, we lived next door to your dad. We could
Really?
look out our window,
our bedroom window.
our bedroom window, and look into his bedroom window. Pause it there a minute, lad.
Pause the camera.
Buster lived next door.
Yeah.
Got the pie.
And your dad worked with us at the mine. He did various jobs. I don't remember much of what he did when when we were there, when I was there.
Only thing I remember is something about Nair in the shampoo.
Well,
Yeah, I remember that story too.
I didn't
you
do
gotta-
it.
Oh, it wasn't you, huh?
No, it wasn't me. I know who it was, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. I seem to recall you saying something about a lunch pail. No one will have a new lunch
Oh,
pail.
yeah.
No.
That was the first time I went to work there.
Yeah?
And no, the thermos, that's coming, that's later. I got on the skip, that's what they call the hoist that goes down on the cable. And old man Curlew was sitting there, and he's a German that had worked there. Nobody knew how old he was. He didn't know how old he was. But he'd worked there a good 40 years when I went to work there. And couldn't hear nothing. Cussed in German. He wouldn't talk to you in English if he was pissed off at you. Anyway, I got on the skip and had this brand new metal lunch bucket, and I was proud of it, you know. He took a crescent wrench and beat that lunch bucket to smithereens. And he says, there'll be no new lunch buckets on this. I don't know if he was superstitious or what the hell, but he beat her up like the rest of them were. They was all beat up. And so I didn't even last one day with this nice crisp lunch bucket. But,
Well,
I went mining with him, and the miner is 2 drills mounted on a cat on tracks, and these hydraulic booms. It has a 12-foot. Drill's a 12-foot hole, deep hole, and these booms come up, and you can level them off, or you can aim them like this, and there's one on each side, and they're independent. One guy drills one side, and the other guy runs the other side, and they're air hammers, and you drill. Well, I was drilling with old man Curlew, and he'd stand in the middle without ear protection because he's stone deaf, and these 2 drills just hammer, and I had ear protection on, and I could hardly stand it with the earmuffs with earplugs in the ears, and nobody liked working with him because he is an ornery old cuss. So the new guy always had to work with him, and I happened to be the new guy. And like I say, he'd stand there in between the 2 drills and he'd listen. And if you crowded the drill bit, or if it was dull, it'd stick to steel, and you'd lose that hole, and you'd lose that piece of steel, 12-foot steel. And this one night, I don't know, it was a weekend, I had a hell of a time learning, because I understood the mechanics of it. I just didn't capture working with him because he's an ornery bastard. Him yelling at you all the time in German, you couldn't understand what the old fart wanted. But you could hear his hammer starting to go da-da-da, da-da-da, and that was the sign you're going to stick. And he started yelling at me about my steel sticking. I said, no, Curlew, no, it's your side. And I was pointing over there and trying to motion, and of course it was stuck right in the berm, and on the left side of the tunnel, they drill a 6, just like on a 6 of dice, you have a 6-hole burn, they call it, and that's filled with dynamite, and that's as close together as you can get the holes, and that's wired in first, so when that blows up, it blows that rock, 12-foot of rock, out, and then the rest of the 60 holes pop into that.
okay.
So that's how it breaks. And he just went nuts because it's stuck in the berm, and if you do that, then you got to drill 6 more holes, in a different spot, and it really screws you up because the optimum place is right in the center on the left side. And he got all pissed off and took a brand new crescent or a pipe wrench and threw it as hard as he could throw it down the drift, and it landed in this deep mud puddle. And he's jumping around in German and yapping, and he's been yapping, and of course he made you shut your drill down too. Finally got out of his tirade, and he told me in English, he said, "Go get that wrench." I said, "Piss on you, you threw it, you go get it." Well, another 10 minutes of German, then I'll never know what was said, but it couldn't have been nice. My mother was probably in there along with other explicitives, but he finally went and got the wrench. I wouldn't do it, but that was about the end of mining with Curlew. Then I went mining with Davy Huffine Jr. More my style. He's my friend, and we could kick ass and take names. And we had this old beater drill. I mean, God himself couldn't have made this run. A Mexican couldn't even have got it run. I'm quite sure an Indian couldn't have got it. And it was an old Allis-Chalmers. And God, you had to take ether to start it, and it was just a crappy drill. And that was ours to drill with. Well, some nights you got your round drilled, and some nights you didn't. Well, if you didn't drill your round, and you got paid bonus for every ton of rock over a certain tonnage that you broke, you got paid tonnage, which averaged about $5 extra on your paycheck a week. I mean, it wasn't enough to really say yoo-hoo. Well, I was drilling along with Davy and this old beater. My folks gave me a new stainless thermos bottle. No, I was proud of that. And because it kept the coffee hot. Come to work and I'm showing it to the crew, you know, look at this. And I got down to working with Davy drilling. All before that, I got my lunch. My new bride asked me what kind of food I liked. And I liked pears and tuna fish. So the whole time I worked at Fondray Mine, I had tuna fish and pears. Can't stand them now.
Every day.
Every day. But anyway, I got this new thermos. And I was sitting there thinking of things. Dave and I was always pulling tricks on each other. And we got our round laid in and got ready to move after you drill your holes, then we'd stick dynamite in our bibs, 18-inch sticks, and crawl on the end of the boom, and the other guy'd lift you up to we didn't use ladders or none of that shit, we just used the drill. Mm-hmm. You'd get on it like a horse. There again, Imshaw and OSHA, notwithstanding, that was probably not the cricket. But you'd load your holes, and then you'd wire it in with thermalite. Thermalite's a wonderful stuff. It's fused. It's kind of a cord, like it's a metal cord, but you can't put it out even underwater. It burns till she's done. And these fuses, the big fuses that go in a 12-foot hole, you put them through a primer stick with a nail, and there again we'd sit on a case of dynamite because it was soft, a box, and you take this wooden stick and poke through the primer, poke a hole in the primer stick, which is 60% powder, and then you put the little cap through there and tie a knot on it, put it in the hole. It goes in first, and then you have these 12-foot fuses, 12, 13 feet, and they take 12 minutes to burn. With this thermalite, it burns, about, I'd say, 25 feet a minute. Pretty
It's moving.
pretty fast. And you'd get your round loaded, and then you'd move the drill back. You'd spit this thermite, and you'd watch it until it spit all of the fuses. I always had trouble with that. When I lit the thermite, I wanted to get the hell out of there. But the proper procedure was to watch it so it spit all of the fuses, because a rock might fall down and cut that off, and then a couple holes go off. No tonnage, no bonus.
Yep.
And all day shift to do then is come in and rewire your round, and they'd sit around all day and get paid your tonnage. Well, we got ready to move the drill back, and I told Huffine, I said, this thermos is indestructible, watch this. I threw it under the track. I said, back her up. And he jumped on the drill and backed her up over that thermos. Of course, I took my toe when we got ready to back it up, and I kicked the thermos underneath the cap. He backed up. I picked it up and I said, look at that, not even a mark on the damn thing. So, I wasn't, 3 or 4 nights later,
The next week.
the next week, he got, on payday, he went and bought one of them thermoses. And I didn't mind with him, he minded with somebody else. And we got on the skip at the end of the shift, and oh, he was pissed off. He showed me his thermos just flat in the fritter. I said, by God, you must have got a defective one. So, but he's quite a guy in himself. And anyway, one night, this old Alice chamber wouldn't, it was cantankerous. Sometimes it'd start, and sometimes it wouldn't. And we had this particularly big night where anytime you could drill in the back, which is above you, that really falls. You break a lot of rock, big bonus. And we drilled a lot. Really went to her hot and heavy and drilled extra time. And the Utes backed in to pick us up and we weren't ready, so we had to wait and stuff like that. And got everything loaded, wired in, jumped on that AC5, started right up, threw her in reverse, the track come off. Right, didn't move 2 feet. Well, we fought it for, I don't know, another half hour trying to get that son of a bitch and track back on. And it just wasn't working. So, the skip leaves at a certain time and you gotta be on it. And you gotta be out of the mine because all of the other rounds are going off and it gets smoky and really bothers you. So I said, we gotta go, Dave. And I forget now, it was either Tennyson or one of the truck drivers. He said, we gotta go. And I said, well, that's the sheds were no bonus. Dave's just gonna get a hell of a bonus. Dave says, oh no, Dave. He got out his lighter and lit the round. That drill was in the middle of, right between you and me from it. And never said a word. Of course, I got in the truck and I wasn't even looking because I knew it wasn't going to happen. And got to the skip, everything's fine and dandy. He never said a word to nobody. Went home. You always showered when you got out of the mine because you were gross. And you called your clothes diggers. Yet you never washed them hardly. You just hang them up and they'd be stiff. You beat them on the bench to get the knees to move. And, oh, it was grody. But we went home and the next day we come to work, kind of whistling, knowing that. See, day shift didn't have to use that old Alice Chalmers. They had a cap. but we couldn't use the cat because we were young and tender and blah, 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 save it for daycare. So we knew we were gonna get to use the cat. We had to get in that, old checker car, Dave Huffine Sr. He was kind of down in the mouth, but he didn't say nothing. Come on, boys, I'll take you down where you're gonna drill tonight. Instead of riding a truck, which was unusual, you know. And I kind of thought then that we were in deep Shinto. But what they gonna do, fire you? And he took us down, and here you could just see the ass end of this drill and rock all over. The gas tank was blowed off of it. Oh, it was mangled. Took us 2 days to dig that son of a bitch out of the rock, and wired the gas tank back, or the fuel tank back on it, and we had to mine with that. The rest of the time I mined with it. And the hydraulic controls were hanging. I mean, it was just, oh, you'd think it was bad before. It was a piece of shit then. The booms didn't work good. To get the hydraulics to raise like me, I was heavier. To lift me up on my side, you'd have to get a run at it. So you'd bounce. You'd go by the hole for a few feet and then it'd leak down. You'd kind of try to load like hell as you're going by. But I went from there to loader hand, and because that you got a raise from when you mined, you got $3.12 an hour from $3.05 for a truck driver labor. And you got $3.17 for loader hand. Well, I got in this IMCO and I wouldn't fit, because you go through a big trap door in the top, and it's little. It's about like a fighter plane, you know. And with the seat cushion in it, I was too high, because the hard hat hit all the time. And the only light you had was one in the back, and maybe one in the front if it was burning, and your headlight. So you had to wear your hat light, because you couldn't see otherwise.
Yeah.
And the diesels have scrubbers on them, and a scrubber is a great big, like 100-gallon fuel tank that you fill with water, and then the exhaust comes in the bottom, and it filters through that and comes out the top, and it makes blue smoke from Jimmy's black, like cat smoke, and it makes it better for you. I mean, it's not any of it good for you, but it's better than the raw fuel. Well, the thing with that is it creates steam. When you gun it, water flies out, and it's steam, about half steam, so it in a confined area, like loading at the end of the drift, you're not getting any air from the air that they pump in. You're not getting all of that air because you're at the end, and it kind of packs it in. So you don't run the loader long. I mean, you don't sit there and idle when there's not a truck there. You shut it down.
Yeah.
And the truck, same with the truck. When you back a truck in to be loaded, you shut it off because you don't want that steam. Well, I'm sitting there, and it's dark. I mean, you don't know what it is dark outside until you've been in the tunnel. It's dark. You can't see anything. And you hear all this stuff. You hear slabs of rock falling, and I'm sitting there minding my own business. And when you get a load of rock with them IMCOs, when you lift it up to dump it, it's sitting right over center where that trap door is, because that's the rest position with it.
Yeah.
Then you let her down a little bit and rock her back and shoot her up. Well, Billy Tennyson was a smart-ass little bastard, and he took a chunk of dynamite about, I don't know, he says 3 inches, It sounded like a foot to me. And put a cap in it. When he backed in and I loaded him up, he lit the son of a bitch and threw it under the loader as I stopped. I got my other bucket, stopped, shut her off. So I'm sitting here. And here he drives down the drift. You hear this brr, 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 brr. And he's out of sight. And I'm sitting there. Kerboom! Well, I left that loaded seat. I thought the world had come to an end. And I went through that trap door, only there was no way to get out of the trap door.
Because the
Because the
bucket,
bucket was there. And I about made my neck an inch long. And I finally fell back down to the machine and calmed down. And I hear this, and Tennyson walked back, wait for the effects. And we pulled shit like that. I put a stick of dynamite in his truck and loaded him up. I heard him going down the rift. Brum, brum, brum.
Yeah.
You know, turnabout's fair play.
Brian, I hate to cut this right here, but it is.
Of mines you've been in.
Okay.
Okay, start with Pend Oreille. What was it like?
Pend Oreille is a lead and zinc mine.
Okay.
And hard rock mine, and a hard rock mine is there's no timbers. The rock itself holds together enough to warrant not.
It won't collapse on
It
you.
won't collapse on you, generally. And if there's a place where it's slab rock, and slab rocks are not particularly thick, they might be 3 feet thick, but they might be 12 foot across, and they just come down, and if you happen to be unluckily standing there, it's munchkin time.
Yeah.
But on them, you drill through and you put 12 or 15 foot bolts called rock bolts through, and it's a
wow.
big long 15 foot bolt. It's about 3/4 to an inch bolt, and it's got a collar that slips up in the end of the hole, and you tighten it up and it squeezes out, and it holds the roof together. And
Okay.
you put plates on it. And then from there went down to Wyoming and worked in a trona mine. And trona is a solid bleach.
Really?
Yeah, it's white. You mine it with coal mining tools, being soft. They have a big giant saw that's about 25 feet long. It looks like a chainsaw. It's got a big chain goes around it,
Yeah.
and it saws a horizontal or a vertical hole like this, and then it saws a horizontal one like this. It then makes about a 3-inch or 4-inch gap, and then they drill holes for dynamite, and they don't use nearly the powder. They use probably 6 inches of dynamite in a whole 12-foot hole,
Oh.
and it just pops and it comes together. In a hard rock mine, you can follow the vein of the ore. Well, in a trona mine, it's all trona, and they do it in 100-foot blocks. So you have a 100-foot wide tunnel, and then a 100-foot block,
Oh.
and then another 100-foot tunnel. And these blocks are square, 100-foot by 100-foot.
So you must have a lot of ore down there. A
Yeah,
lot of that
the
stuff.
the trona is about 15 or 16 feet thick.
Tell them the temperature difference.
In a hard rock mine, the temperature is about 60 year round. Very comfortable to work in. In a trona mine in Rock Springs, Wyoming, where I worked, the surface was 41 below. It was wintertime. And at the face, 3,850 feet straight down, it was 90 to 100 degrees.
Aha.
Hot.
Wow.
Very hot.
Wow.
And trona, when you sweat and the dust gets on you, it burns you. Well, like bleach wood. But you can bring some home, and you take your work clothes, if you got grease on them or whatever, and you put about a handful or half a cup of the Strona into the wash machine. It completely takes the grease and everything away.
Wow.
About 5 times, 5 washings. Then it disintegrates the clothes. But I only worked in that mine about long enough to move Kathy and Chris down there.
29 days.
29 days.
Oh boy.
Because I got in an argument with my boss. And I was young, and I got his toolbox. I was a mechanic, and he was a new foreman, and he was hot to trot. I got his toolbox, which he was a mechanic. For
Okay,
Blinken.
we got 5 minutes. Go ahead.
And he got mad at me because I took all of the old spare parts and stuff that he had that you hoard in his toolbox and put them back in the bins so everybody could get at it. Well, it made him mad. And so he'd go around with me every night, and I had to oil equipment was part of the mechanic's job. And so that's what he made me do, is just oil equipment. And the gearboxes, 90 weight gear grease, they have quick connectors where you take the grease gun and you plug it on there and you pop it, and when it's full it pops off automatic.
Cool.
And but he treated me like a little kid, and do this one, do this one, do this one, and he made it a hell for 8 hours to follow around. It was his main goal in life, was to make me miserable. And I'd have to go up the hoist to the surface in the middle of the shift and go outside and climb a 30-foot tower where the headstock was, the pulley that brings the ore up,
Uh-huh.
and make sure it was greasing. Well, it was all automatically and sealed. He did it just because he could do it. And when you're at 90 degrees and you go up to 41 below, you freeze your little buns off.
Yeah.
And you never have a coat when you need a coat. And so this one night I put on this grease fitting and it popped off. Well, he didn't see me do it. Well, when you reattach it and you've just done it and it's really pressurized, when it pops off, it throws grease out. Well, when you got grease on your arm, that Tron would stick to it and it'd burn like hell. It'd just burn like the skin off of it. And it popped off, and he said, "Did you do that one?" And I said, "Yeah, I just did it." He said, "Well, do it again." I didn't see it. Well, I did it again. It popped off, and grease went up my arm. And he started to laugh. And he says, "You're gonna burn, ha 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 ha." Well, I had that 90 weight grease gun in my hand, and it had a 55-gallon barrel of it on the truck, and it pissed me off, so I just started shooting him. And it was like 90 degrees, that 90 weight oil. It smelled fishy anyway, but it'd shoot about 15 feet. And down the drift I went, and I just doused his ass. He was 90 weight from head to toe. And he said, "You're fired." I said, "You can't fire me underground," which you can't fire a person underground.
Yeah.
And if you hit a guy underground, it's $500 fine immediately. And so we went to the surface.
Excuse me.
And had to wait there. Well, the union came to my defense because they knew he was picking on me. Well, the mine manager, we went into his office, and Jack Moffett was the guy's name. The union told the mine manager what was going on, and I told my side of it, and he told his side of it, and he the mine manager said, well, Jack, you're, no wonder this happened, you're an asshole, you know, basically. And set him straight. And then he turned to me and he said, I understand your plight in life, but I have a decision I have to make here, and the decision is, since the union came with you and backed you and are in on it, if I let you keep your job, that means that you had to be in the union 30 days before you before you were a union member. You had to work there 30 days. And so I'd only worked there 29 days, so they let me go.
Wow.
Well, the guy was such an asshole. They had this giant crab machine that loads on.
I think we're out of time. Give me 1 second.